Queen Nzinga, the African woman who outsmarted an empire. In the early 17th century, as European empires expanded across Africa with weapons, treaties, and deception, one woman stood in their path and refused to disappear. Her name was Queen Nzinga Mbande. To the Portuguese Empire, she was a constant threat. To her people, she was survival itself. To history, she was long misunderstood, simplified, or ignored. But Queen Nzinga was not a myth. She was not a legend exaggerated by time. She was a strategist, a diplomat, a military leader, and one of the most formidable rulers Africa ever produced. For more than 40 years, she resisted one of the most powerful empires on earth. Not through brute force alone, but through intelligence, adaptability, and political mastery. This is the untold story of the woman who outplayed an empire, a kingdom under siege. Queen Nzinga was born around 1583 in the kingdom of Ndongo, located in what is now modern-day Angola. Ndongo was not a weak state. It was organized, governed by kings, and deeply connected to regional trade networks. But by the late 16th century, it stood in the shadow of an expanding European presence. The Portuguese arrived along the Angolan coast decades earlier, driven by commerce and conquest. Their primary interest was in slave labor. They needed people to fuel plantations in Brazil and across the Atlantic world. Ndongo stood in their way. To weaken African kingdoms, the Portuguese built forts, armed rival factions, and manipulated internal politics. Treaties were offered, broken, rewritten, and weaponized. Villages were burned, leaders were captured, entire communities were uprooted. Nzinga grew up witnessing this transformation, watching sovereignty erode and resistance punished. This environment shaped her worldview early. She learned that power was not permanent, that alliances were temporary, and that survival required constant adaptation. Education in power. Nzinga was born into royalty, but her path was far from guaranteed. Ndongo did not traditionally favor female rulers. However, Nzinga possessed qualities that could not be ignored. She was observant, quick thinking, politically aware. She learned multiple languages, including Portuguese. She studied negotiation techniques, court politics, and European behavior. She observed how the Portuguese spoke of peace while preparing for war. By adulthood, Nzinga had become indispensable to her brother, King Mbande. She served as his closest advisor and primary diplomat, a rare role for a woman at the time. And when the future of Ndongo hung in the balance, she was the one sent to negotiate, the meeting that changed history. In 1622, the Portuguese governor summoned Nzinga to negotiate peace, but the meeting was designed to assert dominance. When Nzinga entered the room, she saw the trap immediately. The Portuguese governor sat on a raised chair. There was no seat for her. The message was clear: submit. Nzinga refused. She ordered one of her attendants to kneel behind her and sat on their back, elevating herself to eye level with the governor. Silence filled the room. This was not arrogance, it was strategy. Nzinga had turned humiliation into authority. Negotiations followed. She secured recognition, the return of captives, and temporary peace. But the Portuguese misunderstood her. They thought the meeting was symbolic. Nzinga understood it was a declaration of equality, broken promises, and betrayal. The peace treaty did not last. The Portuguese resumed attacks almost immediately, violating their agreements. They supported rival claimants to the throne and destabilized Ndongo from within. Soon after, Nzinga's brother died under suspicious circumstances. Nzinga claimed the throne. The Portuguese refused to recognize her. They labeled her illegitimate. They labeled her dangerous. They were correct. Nzinga became queen and transformed resistance into policy. A queen rewrites the rules. Yet Queen Nzinga did not rule traditionally. She rejected rigid norms when they limited her authority. She adopted male titles when necessary. She restructured governance to prioritize survival. She understood one key truth: European empires were predictable. They relied on rigid systems. She did not. Nzinga built a state that could move, adapt, and absorb pressure. When outmatched militarily, she retreated strategically. When underestimated diplomatically, she struck politically. War without fixed borders. Nzinga's resistance was not one long battle. It was a campaign measured in decades. She used guerrilla warfare, ambushes, and rapid movement to exhaust Portuguese forces. She avoided decisive confrontations unless conditions favored her. She relocated capitals. She disrupted supply routes. She turned geography into a weapon. Portuguese commanders complained constantly. Reports described her as elusive, cunning, and impossible to contain. She never fought wars she could not survive. The kingdom of Matamba. As Ndongo weakened, Nzinga shifted focus. She conquered and transformed the neighboring kingdom of Matamba. Matamba became more than a refuge. It became a center of resistance. Escaped captives fled there. Displaced communities resettled. Warriors regrouped. Under Nzinga's rule, Matamba evolved into a strong, centralized state capable of prolonged resistance. This was not chaos. It was calculated statecraft, playing empires against each other. Nzinga understood European rivalry. She negotiated with the Dutch when they challenged Portuguese dominance. She converted to Christianity when it gained diplomatic leverage, and abandoned it when it threatened autonomy. Her faith, alliances, and public image were tools, not constraints. Portuguese officials struggled to define her. She did not fit their expectations. That made her dangerous. Longevity is power. Empires expected resistance to burn out. Nzinga did not. She ruled for over 40 years. Portuguese governors came and went. Military strategies shifted. Resources drained. Nzinga remained. By the time she reached old age, she had become a living symbol of resistance, respected even by her enemies. When she finally died in 1663, she was over 80 years old. She died in power, erasure, and misrepresentation. After her death, colonial narratives moved quickly. They painted Nzinga as savage, unstable, or exaggerated her brutality while ignoring her diplomacy. They minimized her achievements and reframed her victories as anomalies. But oral traditions preserved the truth, and history eventually corrected itself. Why Queen Nzinga still matters. Queen Nzinga's story challenges modern assumptions about power. She demonstrates that resistance is not always loud, that intelligence can outlast weapons, that leadership does not require permission. She was not perfect, she was effective. And empires fear effectiveness. Final reflection. Queen Nzinga did not defeat the Portuguese Empire outright. She did something more profound. She forced it to adapt. For decades, one African woman reshaped imperial strategy, delayed conquest, and preserved autonomy. That is not legend, that is history. If you want more stories about erased leaders, forgotten resistance, and truths buried beneath time, this is Echoed Tales, because some stories were not lost, they were silenced.